Welcome to the Treehouse Show podcast, your weekly dose of tech and all things Team Treehouse. Hey, what's up? It's Dustin, and this is a new episode of the Treehouse Show podcast, and I actually have a guest on the show today. I'll let him introduce himself.
Oh, that was your first mistake. My name is Guy Royse. I'm a developer advocate and just someone who's coded a lot and maker of mistakes.
Oh, yeah. Guy is really, really cool. I've been having a blast talking with him over the last couple of weeks. And maybe you can just give us a quick intro as to who you are, what your background is like, and what you do.
So right now I'm a developer advocate, which if you're not familiar with what a developer advocate is, basically means you're someone who can code but can also talk to people and have a little bit of creative skills mixed in with the mix, I guess. I do that right now for Redis. Before that, I just wrote software. I've worked at several enterprise companies. I worked at a lot of consulting companies, writing code in JavaScript, in Java, in .NET. Done a lot of things over a couple of decades of coding on a lot of different tech stacks. And now I tend to do JavaScript and talk about it.
So if I had to ask, what is your favorite programming language? What would you say?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Usually is.
I guess I could give you some that it's not. It's certainly not COBOL. So I'll say two things. One, I do have some languages. Like there's my go-to language, and then there's like my languages that have interesting features that I like. And so I'm going to name a few languages, and then I'm going to put a caveat on all that. So my go-to language is JavaScript. So if I need to solve a problem, I tend to spin up Node and just start writing JavaScript code, and that's what I do. And it's because I'm real familiar with it, and it's comfortable, and I can be very productive in it. Some languages that I really like right now that I've been looking at off and on for a few years now is I like Elixir. If you haven't heard of Elixir, it's sort of like a functional Ruby that runs on what's called the Beam, which is, I can't remember what Beam stands for, but it's a virtual machine to run Elixir stuff created by Ericsson, the phone manufacturer, years and years ago. Elixir is built on sort of alongside Erlang, which was the Ericsson runtime language. And so Elixir is really cool because it's kind of like a functional Ruby. And so if you've ever done Ruby and that means something to you, then great. It's really interesting. It scales in interesting ways. And so it's a language that changes how I think about programming. And those are the ones I tend to like, right? I think they call those Perlis languages after the person who came up with this idea. His last name was Perlis. You should look at languages change how you think about programming. And so Elixir is one of those. Another language that I like is Rust. And I would never claim that I'm good at Rust at all. I've been trying to learn it for years, but I need a solid project to really stick my teeth into. But it's interesting because it, again, as a Perlis language, it gets me to think differently about programming because it's got this concept of borrowing and ownership of variables so that you can get like systems level C style performance, but get memory safety that you don't get in those languages. And so I haven't seen that capability there, that sort of feature in another programming language before. And so that's a really interesting as well. I don't know if I'd call these my favorite languages per se, but they're ones that I think are really interesting and I've been looking at. My caveat to all of that is that you can write bad code in any language and you can write great code in any language. And so I have written beautiful COBOL code and I have written very ugly Elixir. And favorite is kind of relative.
Gotcha. I guess it depends on the project.
It does. And the selection of a programming language is kind of is a business choice, whether you realize it or not. Mm-hmm. So I worked for a company that went with Elixir as their language of choice because they're the lead technical person, not the tech lead, but the startups are small, right? So probably CTO would be the right term. Liked Elixir. But then it was from a business point of view that was challenging because we had trouble finding developers,
right?
Because it's a little bit of a boutique language, and so could have went with JavaScript instead. That would have worked as well. But then there's also technical capabilities, and so there's a trade-off there in why you pick a language.
Oh yeah, for sure. So the company you work for, Redis, tell us a little bit about that and what you do for them.
So Redis is we were a startup once, but we're probably past the startup stage at this point. It's a database company. It's a place to put your stuff. So we're a technology company. We have a software product that we offer for free online. Anyone can download and play with it, which is just how things work these days. and then we also have like a cloud and commercial offerings so that we can actually make money and be a profitable company, because that's how my salary gets paid, and I like my salary being paid.
Yeah, right.
But it's I said it's a database, but it's kind of an interesting database. My sort of one line description of Redis is it's a memory first NoSQL database. And so when I say that,
Okay.
what I mean is it's memory first. Uh, Everything in Redis is stored in RAM, in memory. Everything you put in it. And so that makes it super, super, super ridiculously fast, right? Because it's all in RAM. And so, you know, sub millisecond response times are the norm. But uh, that makes it feel volatile. And so I say memory first, not in memory, because it can be backed up on disk as well. And so you're doing periodic snapshots. There's lots of techniques to do that. So you can put it in there and use it like a database, even though it's being served up from memory. So it's
So
in
it's sort of
memory.
like caching.
And that's a popular use case for Redis, is to use it as a cache, because you don't have to configure it to save the disk. You can choose to.
Okay.
And so you can, if you have a slow API, or perhaps a suboptimally designed architecture, he said diplomatically, then you could put Redis in front of it and get more performance out of it, because you don't have to hit it as often if it's not going to scale. So you can make things that weren't designed to scale better. And so it's that database aspect. It's memory first. It's NoSQL because it's not a relational database. All right, you don't have like a select star from users where clue greater than 0. It doesn't work that way. It's a key value store, and so you say get this key, and then it returns the value that's in that key. So if I have like a key named foo and it has a value of bar, I say get foo, and then it returns bar. And if I want to set it, I say set foo bar,
I
and
feel
then
like
it
that's
sets it to
probably a
bar.
lot easier to write.
Yeah. I would say overall, it's easier than writing SQL statements. That said, there are a lot of commands, because those keys can contain more than just simple strings, like more than just like a string containing the value bar. You can put strings in there. Those keys can contain hash tables, and so you can have which have fields and values. And then you got commands that will get a particular field and value, or all of the fields and their values. And so there's a lot of commands to manipulate these data structures in all the ways you would want to be able to do that. It's got strings, hashes. It's got sets. And so a set is just a collection of strings that is unordered, and there are no duplicates. So if I add foo, bar, and baz to a set, and then I add baz a second time, it's still only in there once. And then what's the one? Oh, it's got lists, which are doubly linked lists, and so you can do head and tail operations to push things to the front of the list or the end of the list. You can traverse the list and get all the values. And again, it's a list of strings, so you can have a list, and it is ordered, but it's happy with duplicates, and it's slower to get everything out of it than like a set would be, because you have to traverse that linked list. Uh, but it's all those sorts of data structures. I also like to think of it as um, it's a data structure server, or it's networked memory. Sometimes I like to say, but basically it's a key value store that serves up all those data structures that you learned about at college, in your data structures class. If you took a data structures class in college, which not all of us did. I actually didn't. I don't think you did either, Dustin.
No.
Did you?
Nope.
But for all the people out there listening that took a data structures class in college, it serves up those data structures that you learned about over a wire protocol, just a socket, and you send commands down the socket and interact with those data structures. And what's interesting is those data structures are the same ones you're using in your code, and so there's a very nice one-to-one mapping between your code and what's in Redis. So that's sort of I had one other point about it, and it's an in-memory NoSQL, and it's a database, which is to say that you can cluster it, you can persist it, you can scale it horizontally and vertically. There's replication so that you can get for high availability, and so it does all the things that a database needs to do. Um, and so there's more than just writing it to disk to make sure you don't lose your data. I've got replication, and so the data is on more than one server. So if one of the servers goes down, another one just stands up and is now the new primary. And so there are lots of ways to save your data. And I stress this a little bit because people are like, well, it's in memory, so that's risky. And what happens if I pull the plug on the machine? Well, we've thought about that. So it's a safe place to put your stuff.
So what sort of languages can you use with Redis?
It's fundamentally language agnostic because you send commands over the wire protocol, and so there are client libraries for practically any language you'd want to use. Um, there's one for Elixir. There's one for JavaScript. There's one for Rust. Some of them are officially managed and maintained by by Redis, the company. Others are just community projects that intrepid developers have put together to give to the community and frankly probably to raise their star a little bit for a little bit of resume building. Both are totally legit, right? And so popular clients, of course, you got I call them the big four languages of Java, .NET, JavaScript, and Python. There's support for those. We at Redis actually maintains the JavaScript, the Java, and the Python libraries. And so then, of course, we recommend those because we maintain them because they'll come with.
Yeah, I was going to ask you which ones you guys maintain out of the box.
Yeah, there is the .NET one is not maintained by us. It's called Stack Exchange Redis, and I believe there's a team at Microsoft that actually, or like maybe 2 people at Microsoft that maintain it. So
cool.
And I know we maintain a Go client, but there's clients for PHP. There's clients for every language. We actually joked when I hired on because I'm probably the only person at the company that knows COBOL. For like April Fool's Day, releasing a COBOL client for Redis, and then we didn't really have time to do it because that's not a trivial endeavor. But more significantly, we thought if Guy writes this, and then someone uses it, Guy is stuck writing this for the rest of his tenure at Redis. So,
yeah,
and I didn't want to be that, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, COBOL was a nice way to start my career and all, but I'm not really wanting to do more of it. Apologies to any COBOL developers out there.
So tell me a little bit about the use cases. Give me some use cases for Redis.
Well, you did touch on one earlier in our conversation, which was you mentioned that so you could use this as a cache, right? Or it's like a cache because it's in memory. And so Redis is fantastic as a cache. It even has mechanisms to expire keys when you set them. So you can say, give them a time to live and they'll just go away. And we have, but it's fundamentally, it's a place to put your stuff. So any place that you need a database, you can use Redis. You can use it as a cache to make other databases faster. Those are common use cases. It's got a pub sub mechanism so that you can do messaging between processes. And it's got there's more advanced data structures as well that you could play with to allow more capabilities. But I mean, fundamentally, it's a database. It's a place to put your stuff. It's a place to cache your stuff. And it makes a really good message broker. And those are the 3 primary use cases for Redis.
That's really, really cool. So that's going to be it for today's episode, but we are actually going to dive a lot deeper into what Redis is in the next episode. So stay tuned for that. Guy, it was super awesome having you on here today.
It was fun hanging out and chit-chatting. Happy to do it again.
Oh, yeah. So be on the lookout for the next episode. Like I said, we're going to dive a little deeper into Redis and some use cases, and we're going to talk a little bit more with Guy and some of the stuff that he's built. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
And spoiler alert, it may involve Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah, it will definitely involve Bigfoot. So that wraps up the Treehouse Show podcast for today, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. What would you like to hear us talk about next? Be sure to join our community Discord server and let us know. Worth noting, if you want to give us a shot and learn a code, we've taught over 1.2 million developers and counting. You can set yourself up with a 7-day free trial just by heading on over to teamtreehouse.com. Until next time, have fun and happy coding.